Good afternoon. Welcome to this regular council meeting on October 3rd, 2023. I will call this meeting to order. And in doing so, I acknowledge that our land acknowledgement policy is to be reviewed principally to better reflect the important changes to include the Missaluck Métis as a recognized group, and potentially to include also the Jasper House District. And so, although that land acknowledgement itself is open to review, I think it is worth acknowledging the purpose of the land acknowledgement, particularly as we are only 2 days removed from the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day. And the purpose of the land acknowledgement, no matter how it is actually framed, is to honor the relationship Indigenous people have with the land, to remind ourselves of our responsibility and obligations to this place and to Indigenous people. And finally, to affirm our accountability to address the ongoing impacts of colonization that continue to affect Indigenous people. And I say that again in view of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day, which had ceremonies conducted here on Saturday, September 30th, which were attended by a number of Indigenous representatives and quite a powerful day. So I want to acknowledge the presence of those elders and community leaders, Indigenous leaders, who honored us with their presence and spoke so meaningfully to our audience on Saturday, September 30th. With that, councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? If there are none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor Melnick, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That's carried. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval today, beginning with the regular meeting minutes of September 19th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the September 19, 2023 regular council meeting as presented? Councillor Waxer, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That's carried. We also have before us the legislative committee meeting minutes of September 27, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? And seeing none, I might look to Councillor Hall to make the motion that council approve the minutes of the September 27, 2023 legislative committee meeting as presented. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Agenda item 4, we do have a piece of correspondence on the agenda today, a letter received from the Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, thanking our community for its efforts with respect to hosting evacuees back in May, as it seemed like most of the province was on fire, and to our surprise, rather than being forced to evacuate our residents, we were required to host evacuees from Yellowhead County and Edson, and I certainly join with the Minister in thanking our staff and community volunteers who did such a tremendous job of welcoming and including people in our community during a time of great strife for them. Any other comments with respect to the letter on the agenda? Might I have a motion then to receive the correspondence for information? Councillor Keller-Hempy, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Agenda item 5. All right, we welcome Mr. Danny Frechette to present to us about Snape's Hill's Happy Little Trees project. And I see that the presentation is all treed up, so.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Island and Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you and give you a bit of an update on this wonderful project. And again, thank you, Tana, for setting this up for me. I have no idea how she did it, but I certainly appreciate it. I think most of you I know I've met personally, or I certainly know who you are. I've met this lady, Lisa, and I met today. I guess I should have a position. I don't. I guess I'm the founder of the Happy Little Trees Society, if you will. It's a small group of one. I think today, just for the sake of possibly members of council that weren't here in 2022, when I made the first proposal regarding the robust tree planting project on Snape's Hill. So to that end, I'm just going to give a quick recap if I think will be beneficial for everyone. In 2021, Parks Canada's reforestation crew planted a good number of trees, roughly about 60 trees on Snape's Hill, to deal with the removal of all of the trees that were decimated by the pine beetle kill. The trees that were planted that day were of the small variety that were quite often called plugs, which are ostensibly one little spigot of a tree and really used for mass plantings of the tens of thousands, probably. However, when these trees were introduced in 2021, we had a very high failure rate. There was a very significant heat dome, which caused many trees to pass away, not just the little ones. These ones, of course, were not watered. They were just allowed to survive organically. And of course, the failure rate was very high, probably 97% failure rate. Obviously, I don't think they were pleased with that. And my proposal to them being the students and the manager, Marcia DeWendell, who runs the reforestation crew, that perhaps the following year we could introduce a more robust tree, larger in size and larger in number, and to give a backup water system to ensure a high success rate. So to that end, in 2022, through the generosity of Trans Mountain Pipeline and the municipality, through John Greathead's crews, we started the beginning of the Happy Little Trees project. This piece consists of simply, as you can see here, you can see on the right-hand side is a 2,000-gallon tank of commercial grade that Trans Mountain delivered to the site, set it up on 4 pallets that are used for the installation of the pipeline. And the young people you see there, other than myself, is the students that are all in horticulture studies, reforestation studies from all over, mostly Western Canada. They're bright young kids who are very knowledgeable, and they were the ones who actually put the trees in the ground. It was through the generosity of this tank, really, and I guess to some extent a little system of watering that I designed myself, which is where the Happy Little Trees piece comes in. And that really was simple. in its design, all it was basically a collection of water pails that I collected from the recycle center, ranging from small pails, ounces that a toddler can carry, all the way up to a 5-gallon pail. I divided Snape's Hill, which is roughly 3.7 acres, into 10 plots of 5 different colors using stakes. No two colors are side by side. So the intention was for obviously primarily children and to some degree seniors to water the little trees and to enjoy the space. 2022, I've just done an audit of has been the last week, and we have roughly a 93% success rate. We have trees ranging in size of 18 inches up to 4+ feet. They are all very robust. They seem to have acclimatized to the shock, and that is roughly due to the expertise of these kids. All these trees were transplanted locally. They were tagged. Before they were removed, and they were re-implanted in the same direction that they were growing indigenously. This, of course, is a proven process that is done in this exercise globally. The timing of this project, of course, was very fortuitous in that it coincides with the federal government's program to plant up to 1 billion trees nationwide. Of course, none of them are, I'd say very few of them are going to get the care and attention that this group has had in terms of just the participation. Now, this day was a day that I can only describe as the epitome of what this process needs, and that is, of course, in different aspects. Was the professionalism and the knowledge that these young people possess, and the coalition of locals, residents, and people that have an appreciation of the project and of the community. As you can see here on the left, we have in this room, I'm sure he's known as Mayor Ireland and his worship, but to me, that's a picture of my friend Dick Ireland, who is planting a tree with a lady by the name of Brittany Ambrose, who is the archaeological professional out of Calgary. She was brilliant. She had a lot of energy, but I don't know that she had quite as much energy as she was going to be walking into. We had a very a fabulous group of people. There's at least that many volunteers as there are kids from Parks Canada's group. Many of them I would love to name, but I think at one point, the next time I show this picture or any picture of the volunteers, their names will be with it, because it was because of their efforts and the vibe, if you will, and the sense of community. That was that day. It was an awesome day. We had the director of, I guess the founder of the Happy Little Trees supplied coffee and donuts, and JFI Food supplied hamburgers and hot dogs for the crew at the end of the day. This is something that the intention was when I made my presentation to council to proceed with this was, and it's also a guarantee that I tried to live up to with Marcia Doedlong and her fabulous students, that we would have a high success rate. And I'm here to present today that we indeed have achieved that goal. And I've just got off the phone yesterday with an individual who I call the director of all things water tank. And I indeed have got the use of this tank for next season. It may not be needed, but something that is really instrumental in this effort is the community. And the idea is to continue that, so that it provides a space for people to come and commune together and sit with their thoughts, sit with their whatever we all anguish about, or just to relax and see a tree that you've been maybe helping along. I think that process is underway. I know it's underway, and it's going to continue. Now, to that end, I just thought it might just be beneficial for just a little bit of information that these trees are not just trees that have been dug up randomly and stuck in the ground. As I've alluded earlier, they were all marked facing north and reintroduced facing north. And because of the historical significance of this location, this site had to go through an archaeological overview assessment, which of course is mandatory for anything, a location of this stature. As you all know, this is the birthplace of Jasper. This is the original site of Fitzhugh, which was named after the then senior vice president of Grand Trunk Pacific Railroad. Now, part of the exercise with the transplant was there had to be a significant surface inspection. All of the trees as they're dug, and this is what you see happening here on the left, is every hole that was dug had to be sifted through with screens, and all of the artifacts that were found had to be tagged location and what they were and archived and taken back to Calgary. I believe on this location, Richard and Brittany found some artifacts, if I'm not mistaken. Also, going forward, all of these trees are now in a GPS system. So all of these trees will be monitored now forever. And there will be undoubtedly a very, very significant amount of opportunities for these young people to probably write a thesis on how the trees are going to make out. There's a very diverse piece of topography there. We've got hillsides, we've got every direction that is featured here. All four directions on the compass are featured here. And every tree will do differently, and undoubtedly there will be lots of information gleaned going forward. And just on a side note, these trees are not the only thing that are benefiting from this. We have a very, very robust understory. All of the ground covers, roses, Labrador keys, many types of grasses are doing very, very well. I don't know how often council gets to wander through there, but it's delightful right now. It's in full regalia, and all of the lesser story trees and whatnot are really coming along. We have a new crop of poplars, and there are still a significant number of old growth trees up there that will continue being what a tree does. So it's easy to see that down the road, this is going to be a marvelous grove. Out of 100 trees, we have a future to look forward to that it's going to be extraordinary. This space, of course, is something that is unique to this community. We don't have anything like this, and it, of course, is the most recent. It is the oldest piece of occupation in Jasper outside of the Indigenous people that we know of. Now, it's hard to imagine that there isn't some Indigenous activity that's taken place here. I'm just not aware of it, but it would seem likely. To that end, that I suppose is my presentation as the Happy Little Trees update, and really municipalities to be congratulated for your efforts, John, and your crew, and your approval to have the Happy Little Trees system in place. I really appreciate it. If I may, when I first was going to put this proposal together, I had hoped to put a presentation in place regarding a cleanup of Snape's Hill. And a discussion that I've had with John and others is that, of course, this being the location that it is, would have to be a partnership with Parks Canada. And it makes sense, the exercise that we have done here with the trees, with the archaeological review, I think would be expected if anything else were to take place of any significance, certainly if it means any kind of excavation. Now, the presentation regarding cleanup was going to be very simplistic, I thought, but I think it could be anticipated that it may not be. Now, the reason that the cleanup is so important, I think, at this juncture, is we're inviting people, hopefully more children and more seniors to come and commune with the space. But sadly, over the years, the location has been, the trail system, which is very organic. People go across there. There's no signage. People just cross it. And it's like a trail that is consistent. So they're very organic and it works lovely. But many of these trails are occluded with trees, big trees, that if you're at all compromised, you're not going to get to the other side of that trail. Also, something that is beginning to happen, which is unfortunate, is because of the big snow event that happened in June and all of the damage that was done in surrounding neighborhoods in their trees, much of this is being discarded on Snape's Hill. This, of course, is not the intent. And it really doesn't show reverence for a location that is the oldest in our community. That philosophy has been prevalent, unfortunately, for a long time, up to and including any faction have gone up there and done something up there, including Parks Canada's tree removal. I think there's a lot of trees that have been allowed to fall over next to archaeological sites that have torn up walls of what the existing buildings were. This, to me, a tree laying dead from a chainsaw carrying the wall out of an archaeological feature shows a reverence to both of them. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It would be very nice if we could rectify that at this juncture in time. This can't go ahead, really, without a support of this body. Much of what's happened up there happened before this body existed. I don't have to tell Mayor Ireland that, because he was around since the idea came into fold about council. That was a wonderful opportunity, given what we're doing there now. I think Parks Canada has lived up to their mandate. They protected it as such as it is. But because of the lack of public interest, it has been allowed to go in a state that I think it's a sad thing to see. This cleanup portion, I think, in the long term, is not an overly extensive project. It could be done in a day, I think. That's the time frame I promoted for the tree planting, and it was a long day, but we did it. This would serve as an access point for people who want to come and visit there. The idea, I think, that we allow the most historical location in town to become left to this disrepair is a reflection on people that have gone before us. And this is a great opportunity for us to change that direction. I've traveled extensively in the last 3 months all over British Columbia, and I've been all the way to Newfoundland and back in the last year, and I visited many lovely communities. And I've never seen one that the most historical piece of it is unknown, and not just to the visitors, but to the people that live there. I asked a young couple yesterday on Sulphur Skyline, I was hiking. They've been here for 5 years, and I asked them if they knew what Snape Hill was, if they knew anything about the Grand Trunk Pacific Railroad. Neither one of them knew. They're both university graduates. And sadly, they both work for Parks Canada. I'm not here to slag Parks Canada at all, but I think this will give you the depth of how much we've buried the significance of this wonderful space. Now, in closing, I just would like to, if I may, just summarize what I'm suggesting. And I would love your opinion. I love your thoughts. This is a group of good thinkers, and I think that we've got great people in our community that can put something together that is really going to serve us well. I think we have to create a joint venture with Parks Canada and with the community and with Jasper Historical Society. I made a presentation to the museum and its board back in April about the project, and they were overwhelmingly supportive. Of course, they would like to know what their role would be, and in my opinion, of course, they're the sister to this place. Snape Hill is the actual location, and they're the ones who have the archives. Some of the archives. They have pictures of which I've been furnished in the past just to get a sense of what I was looking at myself when I walked the space. And I believe that if we put together a community of, or a committee of involving Parks Canada, the municipality, the museum board, and a couple of what I like to call visionary thinkers, of which I've asked many for their opinion, ranging from retired people from parks, people that have been in the community for a long time, and it's always been overwhelmingly the same way. They love it. They love it. But nobody knows who's in charge of doing it. So I think this is a great opportunity that we let our voices heard, your voices heard. And in a joint venture with Parks, and more specifically with the archaeological wing of Parks, who we have a fresh relationship with. We've had Brittany Ambrose last year. She's familiar with the space. She's bright. And I think she could give us an opinion that will appease their mandate. Now, before I get out of here, I know you're probably tired of hearing me, but I have to say that the essence of the Happy Little Trees and the philosophy and the spirit, if you will, is to get two sectors of our community that would enjoy this the most, would benefit from it the most. And that is our little ones that we see walking around town, nose to tail. I'm sure they're having fun, but that's what they're doing. And our seniors, who these people, both of the demographics I'm talking about, their spaces are smaller. They don't need to go hike up Sulphur Skyline, but they would like to go and maybe water a tree, but they can't get there, and nobody knows who should get them there, and should they be there? Questions that are really small time, and I know this body deals with some big issues that may not be happy, but this is happy, and this is meant to let those sectors of our community enjoy it. You put a toddler up there with a pail of water in their hand for an hour, I think it's going to be a wonderful experience for them. And a senior that doesn't do anything but sit and watch the TV with the sound off can go out there and water a tree. And that to me is what we're missing out here. And there's no other space in Jasper that has that. This is a wonderful opportunity for those people to feel like they're still an active part of our community. Anyway, in closing, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm happy that if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. And if not, I would love to hear your thoughts at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frechette. That was a spellbinding presentation. On behalf of all of council, I thank you for that. Just before I open it, two questions. I just wanted to make a bit of an observation. Now the slides are gone. Okay.
Sorry, I forgot. I started talking so much I forgot to show you the pictures. It's one of my dog Enzo. Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I do apologize. Anyway, this is indeed said Happy Little Trees. They're very sophisticated, as you can see. And it works like it. And also something I didn't mention about it, the little toolbox you see there contains a journal that is there's crayons in that box, and I have all the little water people sign it. And the date that they signed, they watered, and the color of trees that they were, so that people behind them don't water the same ones. Now this is an example here. These are last year's, these are 2022 trees. The one on the left is probably 30 inches. The one on the right is close to 5 feet. These are the red ribbons that I've installed recently so that we can find them. And you can see the grass is, the understory is very happy. And without the red ribbons, you won't find them. Now this, of course, is the trail inclusion aspects that I was speaking about. You've got this one on the top left is a tree that fell down years ago, and if you see the remnants of the stone wall, that is the backside of one of the Grand Trunk Pacific buildings.
The one in the middle is ostensibly the same. The one on the far right at the top is garden refuse, lawn clippings, what have you. The ones on the bottom are trees that have been felled by chainsaw and that is laying over top of the backside of what was one of the significant artifacts in Canada Pacific. So at the top left, you can see piles of brush that I'm sure a 5-year-old would start with a big layer. And a lot of the other ones, the big stumps, this was the division for cleanup back in the day. Those stumps have been in here for probably 40 years. And the one on the bottom right, which is basically a 14-inch log that's laying across one of the most used trails that accesses from the street. Great, that's it.
All right, well, thank you again. If I could just get you to go back to the opening slide. Oh, next. So I just wanted to comment, you did comment on that slide, the one on the left. And in defense of that rather pathetic little hole, I will make this observation. That hole was, I think, the only one that I got done all day, and I had just got started when I hit an artifact, as Danny indicated. And Brittany came, and I was so glad that she was on site, because as an archaeologist, she could add so much value to what we were doing, exclusive of the planting component. And what I found there was shards of glass, and we pulled them out by hand, one at a time, put them in a Ziploc bag, and they were taken away somewhere to be identified and dated. And my understanding is that those pieces of glass could be identified through the color that was in them and a process that would have included the color. And they were at least 100 years old, and we could identify that. So the site has been really well used. I am familiar with it, as Danny indicated. In fact, when I was probably 5 years old or so, I learned how to ski on that hill. I could shuffle over from my home, or my parents' home, and that's where I learned how to ski. And I was always aware of the rock foundations, which are on the top of the hill, which were the foundation of Mr. Snape's home and some outbuildings. And so I find it just so warmly serendipitous that your idea of happy little trees can lead us back to our community roots. And if we can find a way to recognize the historical significance of that site and improve it ecologically as well, it's such a wonderful outcome. So I really do thank you personally for your attention to that space and your attention to the trees. It's been a great effort on behalf of the community. I thank you for that. Councillors, questions or comments for Mr. Frechette? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I too also want to thank you, Danny, for this project you've taken on, as it is directly across from where I live, and I've lived in that area for about 20 years, and I'm up on that hill every day with my dog. And yes, there's lots of wood scraps and things I've seen up there the whole time. And I find these in-town green spaces that aren't for buildings are rare. We don't have a lot of them in Jasper, and they should be maintained, and they're very special. Especially with on the other side of the Snape's Hill is the new apartments. So it's just going to be a nice space for people that live in that area to come and sit and reflect. Couple questions for you. So to get in there and start cleaning up, you were saying you need a parks approval. Like it would be, you'd have to get another assessment done, or how would that work?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. No, I don't know. And that's something that I'm sure could be answered to this body or locally. I don't think, given the Snape's Hill has had numerous archaeological overview. Anytime anything has been done on that hill, it's always it had to have a review. So this, of course, is, I think, falls into maybe a different category. The fact that it's not really safe. Anybody is not ambulatory to the point where they can get over a 12-inch log. Our little one, of course, couldn't. And now with, as I was mentioning earlier, the amount of tree branches and stuff that are being discarded there because of the snow event in June has now become problematic, in my opinion. And I agree with you with the green space. That what's interesting to me is we've not really elevated this location to the status that it should be accorded. In other words, council have got a wonderful policy that says that if you have a recreational or institutional or residential space, then it will be fronted by a sidewalk. Now, Snape's Hill has got no sidewalk. It's got sidewalks one end of Lodgepole and at the other end of Lodgepole, but the lion's share of the historical space, which is interesting, if you look at it in reflection, a 1972 mobile home has been given more reverence, if you will, than the oldest site in town. So what happens, because the site is unknown, and we know it's unknown, because through my casual surveys, I can tell you, I've talked to a person who was a registered nurse here for almost 50 years. And she retired. I said, you know, they're going to have to hire 10 nurses to make up for you. And you know what? She had no idea. I asked her one day, she was walking up my street with a walker. And I said, you know what this space is? And she had no idea. Now, this is a significant oversight. So the fundamental way to deal with this, in my opinion, is first it has to be elevated to a status that is recognized for what it is. Parks Canada does it through very succinct legal documents that you can't get because they protect it so well. And so they should. They've lived up to their mandate, but they've never had a mandate to tell anybody about it or to display it. Largely, I think, because we didn't have a council. We had a town committee, we had people who had opinions, but this is different. This is something that I'm not suggesting we go in there with a rake for 30 minutes. I'm suggesting that fundamentally we have to elevate the status of this space first. And you don't get to park your car on it. You don't get to throw all your lawn clippings on it, because this isn't just a field. This is the genesis, if you will, of the Canadian National Railway, which was formed after the Grand Trunk Pacific and the Canadian Northern went bankrupt. So this is the roots of our community. And then, of course, Parks Canada piece after. They're almost joined at the hip because they all happen simultaneously. Almost. Parks was a little earlier, and if you look at our community today, we live in a national park that has got a significant railway presence and Parks Canada presence. This is their birthplace. And you know something? Nobody knows it. This is a significant oversight. It's not a big deal. I'm not talking about putting up buildings here. The best application for this historic hill is a historic hill. And to try to make it into something else is not at all what I'm suggesting. To do anything other would be a mistake, clearly. I mean, I've been there for 40 years. And 40 years from now, I won't be there, but that hill will be there. And what my friend Dick Ireland and Miss Ambrose did that day will stand there forever. That is the reality of it. Not a big deal. We can't make the buildings back, but we can acknowledge what they represent. Thank you.
Thank you again. If there is nothing else from any councillors, Councillor Waxer.
I don't have very much to say, but just to say thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront and to our attention and to the public's attention. And I think this really deserves more consideration. And I think I appreciate the effort you've put in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. If I may just say, when I made my presentation to the Historical Society and the Museum Board, much of that warm invitation to do so was facilitated by Warren Waxer, who is the president of that board, and he is very, very passionate about the history, obviously, by his position. And I take most of the people I discuss with the Hill on the Hill, and he is a willing participant. I can't imagine anybody who I'd rather work with more. Warren's a beauty. He's a smart guy, and he has a lot of passion. And I think he'd be a wonderful addition to any council or committee that would ever be formed. And yes, I appreciate his insight.
Thank you again. I go to the councillor for a motion. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to make a motion that council receive the presentation for information and direct administration to continue working with Mr. Frechette on opportunities to improve the Snape's Hill and the Happy Little Trees project.
I know that some of you attended a session at the elected officials education program that suggested that friendly amendments were not a healthy way to proceed.
I'm very,
But I wonder whether
very
you
open
might,
into it.
I wonder whether you might consider in your motion referring the suggestion of entering into a joint venture agreement with Parks Canada and the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society to a future committee of the whole meeting. So rather than just directing staff to do something, I don't know that that authorizes staff to enter into a joint venture, but I think it's an opportunity for us to engage with Parks Canada and with the Historical Society and come up with the very idea that Danny has presented, a joint venture where we coordinate efforts and perhaps assign duties and move forward with what to me is a really compelling project. But I would like that to come back to council rather than just direct it to staff. So I'm suggesting that as part of your motion, but I can certainly relinquish the chair and make a motion separately if you're not interested.
Well, I think it should be your motion. I fully supportive of it. I'd like to pull my motion off the table and then allow you to put your motion forward.
Do we have council consent to withdrawing the motion?
Yes.
All right, that is done. I will then relinquish the chair to acting mayor. If she can.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Would you like to make a motion?
My motion would be that council receive the presentation for information and refer the suggestion of entering into a joint venture agreement with Parks Canada and the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society to a future committee of the whole meeting. And in the meantime, direct administration to continue to work with the Happy Little Trees group to further the initiative of the Snape's Hill project.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, for your motion. Is there any questions from Mayor Ireland? Any debate? Councillor Henley.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor Councillor. When we refer this, I think we should keep our thoughts open to include other interested groups, including the Friends of Jasper National Park, who this seems to be something that would be right up their mandate, as well as possibly working with what has become the company after the Grand Trunk Pacific, possibly working with CN and having maybe volunteers from their work group to participate and truly make it a full community involvement.
Thank you, Councillor Nolan.
Just to respond to exactly why I think we need a more wholesome discussion of the committee of the whole to figure out just how broad the net should be, but I agree with that.
Yeah. Mr. Frechette.
Just if I may just speak to Councillor Valnick's proposal recommendation in terms of Friends of Jasper. I had a wonderful opportunity to present my vision and my proposal to I think it's Heather Roy is her name, and she was very generous with her time, and it started as a discussion regarding benching, town benching, and that we have throughout the community, and she loved it. She is willing to give me an endorsement letter, and in support. She thinks it's a wonderful piece of the puzzle that really speaks to our town trail system. It speaks to our conveyance of pedestrian use, etc. It falls out of their mandate to some degree because of the historical component. And again, it really sort of confirmed to me that it demands an elevation in stature in terms of community's opinion. And as far as CN goes, as you know, as some of you may know, I was a locomotive engineer along with Ross Ireland for 42 years. I may be in the minority, but I love the railroad. I love the romance of it. But it's something that CN has in place. They do have a community funding that we have a member in Jasper, Haley Cooper, who I presented to her probably a year and a half ago at her office, and she was very, very receptive to it. Of course, it's very difficult for any of these people to, in CN's community piece, for example, to give funding to an individual, even if you have a fancy name like Happy Little Trees. So I really wanted to include a body that is recognized and affiliated to an association. I've always been a little leery of jumping down a rabbit hole of any organization's dogma, because this isn't about horseshoe pits and barbecues. This is about exactly what I presented. So she loved the idea, and she thought that it would be a very, very accepted proposal to CN's committee. After speaking with her, I came away with two conundrums. One was, how do I get access to the funding without getting down somebody's rabbit hole? So I presented the proposal to the museum board. Again, I was there as an individual. It's just, there's just too many pieces missing. And in terms of CN funding, after talking with her, I was afraid that I was going to ask for too much, for too little, because she felt that this project really touched on so many high points that when I told her how much I was looking for, she said, I think you can get more than that. So that's where it rested. And I have to say candidly, I've had people approach me, and the money is there. But I think that the people, CN Rail, Parks Canada, and the citizens of Jasper should have first right of refusal, because it's their project. None of this belongs to, the genesis of this was CN, Grand Trunk Pacific, Canadian Northern. This is their history.
the Parks Canada bit is their history, way before I got there, or any of us. So really, to keep the essence and the genuineness of this project, they're the ones that should say either they're in or they're out. And I think overwhelmingly they're quite perceptive.
Thank you for your additional perspective and the work that I think just highlights what Mayor Ireland is requesting us to do in the committee of the whole to how we move forward with this. Thank you for that additional information. I think it's very will help a lot as we look at this at a future committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Any other debate before I call the question? All in favor? That is carried. Now I have the chair back to.
Thank you for that, Acting Mayor Keller-Reddy, and thank you again, Mr. Frechette. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. And if I may, just in closing, I'd really like to thank all of the councillors for the work that you put in. It's a big job, and I know a lot of it is tough. And, you know, somebody who's had the privilege, really, of living in this community for as long as I have, I appreciate you, all of you. And of course, my friend Dick Ireland. At some point in time, there will be a photo essay of you, my friend, and all the contributions that you've made. And I can tell you, that picture is going to be in there. Thank you all.
All right, councillors, that takes us to agenda item 6, new business, beginning with 6.1, director's reports. Mr. Frechette, Director of Operations.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My report's in front of you. I picked out a few highlights that I'd like to go over quickly. The centrifuge replacement project at the wastewater treatment plant, it's been set back by a few significant delays. Unfortunately, we had some issues with the programming for the controls and SCADA, and one of the key techs from the centrifuge provider had quit the company late unannounced and left them in a bad spot, which had a real knockdown effect on our project as well. We've made some progress over the last few weeks and have been able to run the centrifuge in manual. It's not quite in full automation mode, and we're not quite up to being able to run at full operating speed yet. But those bugs are anticipated to be worked out in the very near future. And then that project should be able to be considered complete. The RCMP lot is another project that's been taking a bit of time and work. We've just got information back from the designers and the engineers for the RCMP lots, and we're seeing where we need to tweak the elevations of our road, where they need to deal with the elevations on their lot. We've been dealing with stormwater drainage issues. To date, we've delineated where the stormwater ditch accesses are going to be, determined the capacity of those ditches, and we've also subdivided a lot, that CH lot, into a front and a back parcel and a road allowance within that section to continue with this work and allow them to build their lot or to build their new depot. After many months, 16 months, I believe, 17 months, we were finally able to find the water leak at S block that we had been looking for a long time. We tried everything on that one. We used acoustic listening devices, and it was able to narrow it down. And then we ended up doing some zone metering to exactly determine which leg of that water main the leak was appearing on. I used my witching sticks, and we also deployed smart dolls. And it's funny to say, all of us were off by about the same variable. We were losing about 1.3 million liters of water a day out there, and the drainage is such in this area, being on an ancient riverbed, that it was just disappearing into the ground. When we had dug test holes last year, we got to a depth of about 12 feet. And the water main was about 15 feet in depth. And we were just a few feet over top of the water main, and we were expecting that we would have seen water in quite a large volume, and the soil was dry. We were shocked once we did actually uncover the leak. The pipe was split in half, almost 2/3 of the way, the circumference of the pipe, and it had a gap of about 1/4 inch. So I meant to bring those pieces for show and tell. It actually had a rock that was right underneath the water main break, where the water had been flowing so good that it eroded the rock right away and shaped the rock. It was a real head scratcher, that one. Like that loss of water. We were shocked that we had never seen a symptom of it or any appearance of that water until we actually got right down beside the water main. But luckily to say, we were able to get it fixed with a 1-day shut off, minimal disruption to the area, and the next day we saw that our water usage had dropped by about 1,300 cubic meters in a day. Biosolids is another large problem that I've been working on. We have a 22-year accumulated stockpile of biosolids at the waste transfer station. Going to deal with this, we've been in discussions with parks, and a lot of the historical or very old material we may be able to use for some soil remediation projects within the park. Some of the newer materials, we're going to have to figure out a way of dealing with it, and then our newly produced biosolids is, we're going to have to manage that properly. I've reached out to our partner municipalities within the West Steelhead Regional Waste Management Authority, and discussing with them about a regionalized approach on working with our biosolids and our composting facilities. So there was here work done on that and presented to the Waste Management Authority years ago. We're going to go and review and make sure that what was presented years ago is still suitable for today's needs and where we need to go. And I would like to be back in a short while to report to council on what our partner agencies are thinking, our partner municipalities are thinking, and the best ways forward with that. We had a lot of bears in town this year. I believe at one point we had 16 individual bears visiting town for the fruit trees. The most recent I've heard is we're down to 10. Some of them moved on. But there were quite a few trees on municipal property that were drawing the bears in. Parks Canada and operations, we had talked about it, and we said that we were not the experts on which ones are problematic trees. We would leave that discretion to Parks Canada, but we had given them permission to remove any that were an actual problem tree. We didn't give authorization for clear cutting of all the fruit trees within the town. So that's so far this year they've removed 42 bear attracting fruit trees from municipal property, and we still have about 120 remaining. Most are mountain ash. They're a low attractant tree, and quite a number of them are on Connaught Avenue, but we still have that number remaining. In the utilities department, we have 6 certified operators, including myself, for water and sewer certification, and really happy that we've gotten to that level of certification, and we are doing most of the work now completely in-house. Sometimes we need to contract out a larger excavator than what we have, available, but that's pretty much it. The rest of the work now is being done in-house by our crews. We're noticing a large increase in vandalism and graffiti instances. Working with the RCMP, Sergeant Benesi had asked if we can help clean up some of the stuff that's not just on ours, but kind of in the general alleyways and garbage bins, electrical transformers, and those type of piece of infrastructure, and just help it remove the graffiti. So we've been doing that as well, as opposed to just looking out on our own stuff if it's in some of those common areas, just to help improve the visibility of the town and make it not look run down or as vandalized as it has been. And one other thing I'd like to mention is that our manager, Laurent Balduc, has volunteered to give some staff, and he does it in his own time, some driver training and experience. And we've worked with some of our staff that have expressed interest in getting up to their 3Q, or their dump truck with air brakes certification. And I believe that we've got 5 staff that have made use of his efforts and been working together. And if the job finishes up a half an hour at the end of the day, sometimes give someone driver training, get them ready for the road test. But we've got quite a few more certified dump truck operators within our group. And those are pretty much the highlights, but I'm available for any of the questions the council may have.
Thank you, Director Greathead. Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for a very detailed report. Director Greathead, one thing that I think you went from the wastewater centrifuge to the RCMP, and I see the note about the Sani dump station work in progress, and I see a lot of work happening there now, and other work that looks like needs to be done. Is there a timeline that will be coming up where that station will be closer to completion? I understand the centrifuge, for example, having the delays, but is the Sani dump, is that a project in the next month or two that will be completed before winter?
Your Worship, to answer Councillor Melnick's question, that's 3 to 4 months late, and it's very frustrating right now. I'm dealing with some contractor issues, as well as I need to acknowledge that this wildfire season was incredibly taxing on ATCO Electric. So we've been delayed on some of the projects just by getting our installs and our power drops in from the poles and that. So today they're actually dropping in power from the poles, bringing it over to that station. I still have mechanical and electrical installations outstanding. I'm going to say that I don't think I'm uncommon, but we were facing problems with contractors, scheduling issues, parts availability, and I don't mean to, use that as an excuse, but it's something that in Jasper here, I'm finding it quite difficult.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that, and also, the significant portion of that being ATCO's involvement and the amount of challenges they probably have to deal with throughout the province. Totally understand that how that would affect our smaller project here compared to what they're dealing with in the province.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Councillor Pellegrini.
Thank you, Mr. Greathead, for your report. I quite enjoyed reading it. And just follow up on the Sandy Dam. Parts Canada will probably close the one down on 90th Street here mid-October. Will the old Sandy Dump be available for buses that are still in town? The season seems to be really extended this year towards the end of October into November, and then we're open to Ski Hill where we have a lot of buses come with bathrooms. And how are we going to be able to provide services for this?
Your Worship, to answer Councillor Keller Haverty's question, yes, we anticipate we will. I was hoping that we would have the old Sandy dump rehabbed by now and restored. That obviously hasn't happened. So we're having a site meeting on Friday with the outstanding mechanical electrical installers. And we will be adapting because we know now that we're going to have to keep it open. I'm at the earliest, that'd be a month. That's if it won't show up ready to work all. I also need that much time.
Illustrated.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, my question is about fruit trees, and I'm a bit concerned that we've been cutting down a fair amount of our mature trees throughout the community. And I know that, you know, council has supported that as a deterrent to bears in the community, but I guess a couple of questions. I'll ask them all and then you can kind of answer them as you will. First one is yes, getting rid of fruit trees. I think that's a good thing in our community. Yet getting rid of mature trees in our community is challenging because, you know, we've put a lot of time and effort into planting trees throughout our boulevards, etc. These are mature trees now, some 20, 40 years old. Could you put a number, you know, like an estimate on, you know, what would it cost the taxpayer to replace these trees? And why have we planted fruit-bearing trees in the first place? My question, I guess, would be, were these on an approved planting list at some point? And I'm assuming that planting list was Parks Canada. Have we talked about compensation for these mature trees in our community? Because we don't have many. They take a long time to grow. I do feel like the taxpayer should be compensated for the trees that we have planted under direction of Parks Canada. And so I guess that's, there's a couple questions in there and maybe just an opinion, I guess, as well.
Your worship, to speak to Councillor Wilson's questions. In my time, we've never planted a fruit-bearing tree or nothing that's not been approved on the approved list. We do have an updated list of the approved fruit trees. It's just being completed right now. And that's what our purchasing list is going forward. The cost of a tree, it depends on where it is. The tree wells, we had a tree vandalized out in front of the Circle K earlier this year, just to try and fix the value of it. And the staffing, the amount of water, the time that we invest in a tree, purchasing it, removing the old one, talking about $1,400 per tree in a season, in its first season. But those are the ones in the tree wells where we actually have to go and water them. They don't get much ground infiltration because of the hard surface around them. We don't need to do as much work outside of those tree wells. I'm not sure what it would cost, but I would ballpark it at say $500 per tree is what it would cost to plant. A lot of the fruit trees that were removed on municipal property were a lot in the Cabot Creek area, and a lot of them were trees where fence encroachments, the fences had to be moved back. And they were in someone's backyard at one point, and now they ended up on municipal property. So there was, I would say, maybe a dozen of those instances out of the 42 that were removed. Interesting. Is there anything further? Sorry, I might have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, of course, we're not planting those trees now because they aren't on the amended tree list. But I do know that many of those trees were on an approved list at some point in time. So, you know, we're planting and working under the parameters and the direction given to us and committing, you know, $1,400 for sure a tree, but that's not a mature tree, right? Like that's a 5-year-old tree, right? We're talking about 20 to 40-year-old trees now. And so it's disappointing, and it's not on administration at all. It's disappointing that Park's solution now is to cut down fruit-bearing trees that in the past they've given permission to that we plant those trees. So yeah, I'm just highlighting my disappointment in this solution as the only solution. I guess my last question would be, has operations had any discussion with Parks Canada on other solutions such as fencing certain areas of town, or any other type of solutions that may be out there? Or is this the number one kind of direction Parks is kind of pushing us to go right now?
Councillor Wilson, they've given us the option of harvesting the fruit on the tree. That would be very, very expensive and problematic to have to do that. So I thought I think the simplest, most efficient answer would be harvest the tree. And again, that was, I know the sentiment around the trees. I like the look of the community. A nicely treated community is very welcoming. That's what we want. So again, it wasn't a clear-cut approach. It had to be a demonstrated, bear attracted, bears in the tree again and again and again. Then the tree was coming down. So that was how they approached it, and the crew that we were working with, Mr. Andrews from Parks Canada, and that he was quite cognizant of the feeling the community had about the trees and wanting to be as surgical as possible on the road with these.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Fairhead? Councillor Melnick?
In an effort to constantly understand the dynamics in your department, I have to ask a question about smart balls and what technology that is.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. The smart ball is actually, when we did that, it's got a microphone and it has a little kind of sends out a sonic pulse, and it can detect the quality of the water main. So it'll detect where there's a thin spot in the water main, where a future problem could be, where maybe it's eroded, or there's a flaw in the materials, as well as it tracks with the GPS where it is going down there. It measures its travel rate. So when we had to disconnect a section of the water main, take it out of service, going from up by Hazel and down through. And so what we did was when we put it in the water main, we take the top of a hydrant off, have the water main depressurized, put the ball in, put the hydrant back in, open the valve, and we start flowing the smart ball at about 2 meters per second as it's flowing down the water main. And the whole time it's listening and it's recording all this information. So then when it's retrieved at the end of its run, you have an outlet and a basket to catch the ball. It's about the size of a squash ball. So it's not very big. Inside it's got an SD card. Open it up, record the information, put it on the computer, find out where here's the leak, and you measure that off. So again, we were within, I don't know, maybe 15 meters of where where it indicated. Having dug down to the water main level, again, we were shocked at how quick the water was disappearing. It was phenomenal. But we so expected it to be, so visible. So 1.3 million liters a day flowing out of there, and it was just disappearing as fast as it was getting thrown into the ground.
With that volume, in our total water production, what percentage would that have been that we're now saving?
It increased our production by about a third from the last year. We actually had to notify AEP, and Vidal did the reporting early. Mr. Michaud did the reporting early last year. When it was noticed that we were going to be in exceedance of our water license usage, let them know that there was a huge leak. we had gone and found or could not find. We let them know the steps we had taken, showing that we were searching for this. We had hired out professional staff. We had dug test holes. We had just finished off that parking lot in this block, and then we were punching holes right in there to look for this leak. Within 2 months afterwards, it was a very frustrating exercise that we went on. We hoped we had found it earlier. But between all these, the acoustic detection, that probably cost the municipality. I think that one was probably around the $15,000 mark. Setting up the zone metering for the day, that was probably another $15,000 exercise, just trying to pinpoint it and narrow it down. The deployment of the smart balls, that's another $25,000 to look for a leak. And again, throwing my witching sticks in there, we were all off about the same amount.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of an inexact science until you get, you got a good idea where you're going. You start digging a hole, find the water, and then you follow the water to the leak. This one was a goofy one.
Thanks for the additional information. Appreciate that.
That is exactly where I wanted to go as well. So did I hear you right that at 1.3 million liters per day is about 30% of the volume that we pump in a day?
That'd be correct.
So my concern is, apart from the cost of finding it, and I congratulate you. I know it's been a mystery for a year and a half, and you've been working diligently, and congratulations, you finally found it. I am concerned though now about what this does to our utility rate moving forward. So I'm assuming that consumption in particular is based on the overall cost divided by the volume, and that sets the unit price. The volume is going to reduce by a third or 30%. I'm going to assume that the cost is not going to decrease by the same amount, so that the unit price is going to have to rise. And when we look at our rates for next year, having stopped the leak, the unit price per volume of water should rise.
Should go down.
Sorry?
Shouldn't go
I don't think so. Suppose it cost us $100,000 to pump that much water. Now we're pumping a third less or 30% less. It's not going to cost us 30% less to produce the water, I don't think. I don't know what the scale will be, but with huge volume, typically unit price goes down. Now we're going to reduce the volume. Typically unit price goes up.
If I may, this leak appeared after we set the water rates. Well, we did not adjust it last year. So I'm not sure. I don't think we factored that into it when we revisited the water rates last year before they were determined. I didn't flag it last year as something we should use to build up or to increase our rates, because we knew that there was a leak. We just didn't know where it was at that point. So it wasn't something that we advocated for to increase. So if I recall, I don't believe that we adjusted our rates between when we adopted the new model and last year. So I would think it would be a moot issue.
I hope you're right. So do I. Thank you for that. My second question, just with respect to graffiti, and I take it from your comments on that, that's mostly in lanes and so the larger commercial style garbage containers and then pedestals that belong to ATCO. Has anybody done any quantitative survey about the benefits of wrapping? And so the post office, for example, has wrapped post boxes and the on-street ones, and my own observation, it's only anecdotal, is that they seem to be subject to less vandalism. Our own on-street garbage receptacles that look so nice now, they seem to be less of an attractant for graffiti artists. Is wrapping a double benefit. They look nicer and they avoid the cost of cleanup by discouraging vandalism in the first place.
Your worship, I can't say that, I or the department has ever, looked into that. I know that we've approached, putting wraps on certain projects. And, I know that it's a bit of a process being embarked. So it's something that we really haven't been following, but I can, do a little bit of research on it and just find out what it would cost and, get some anecdotal information on that.
And it would also be interesting to know not just the cost, but whether it does in fact have that impact, or whether I'm just imagining that all those things that we wrapped in the last couple of years now suffer less impact of vandalism. Anyway, I will leave that with you. And then the very last matter I have is not a question, but a comment and a request that you carry back to Vidal Michaud. Compliments for a job really well done with his interview with CBC regarding transit. I know that that was somewhat out of his comfort zone to do that, but he did an excellent job with assistance, I think, from Amanda Stevens in communications, but the two of them, one in your department and one reporting to Mr. Given, are deserving of credit for the great work they did on that. So I have thanked him, but I'm happy to take the opportunity to publicly thank him and let you know that he did a great job.
That's fantastic. We'll make sure to pass that on. Thank you, Your Worship.
Is there anything else for Mr. Greathead, our Director of Operations and Utilities, Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Just more comments. I always find it, I like these updates that I learned new terminology like smart balls. Happy to tell what that was. Regarding staffing, I think it's great that you've had some staff obtain higher level of driver's licenses, and we've got some wastewater operators now on staff. And I also wanted to congratulate Greg Allen for 10 years of service with the municipality. Thank you, Director Greathead.
I would ask a councillor for a motion to receive the report as information. Councillor Watser. Thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Greathead. That takes us to agenda item 6.2, Welcoming Week Proclamation. Riel, I presume that draws you to the chamber today.
Here we go. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Ireland and all council. The report in front of you is about Welcoming Week and the proclamation. Our recommendation is that council proclaim October 21st to 28th as Welcoming Week here in Jasper. For some background, Welcoming Week is an initiative of Welcoming America, which is a nonprofit that leads an international, a global movement of inclusive communities. And Welcoming Week 2003 marks the 11th anniversary and Canada's 3rd year participating. So the request is actually coming to council from Jasper's local immigration partnership coordinator, and that's Monica Rodriguez, who's here as well today, within the Department of Community Development. The municipality's been coordinating and supporting Jasper's local immigration partnership since 2017 through a funding agreement with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC. IRCC supports 86 local immigration partnerships across the country, and Jasper is one. They support participating in Welcoming Week, and they recognize that participation is an opportunity to highlight the work of immigrant serving organizations and community partners towards successful settlement and integration of newcomers. So Jasper's local immigration partnership, together with settlement services, which is also out of our worksite at 627 Patricia, have been collaborating to organize a whole bunch of different events throughout the week. Council might remember last year, many of the events unfortunately had to be canceled due to the Chettaman fire, but many of you were at the sort of week's end event, which was the community culture night, which went over so well in our community. Strategically, proclaiming Welcoming Week advances several of council's strategic priorities, many around embracing our growing diversity, leveraging and creating opportunities for greater inclusion, and recognizing how many newcomers work in the tourism sector, recognizing that fundamental importance of our tourism economy. Welcoming Week is an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the people, places, and values that communities hold that make people feel welcome and that they belong no matter what and no matter where they're from. A proclamation by council demonstrates the municipality's commitment to being a leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion, and affirms the significance of the week's event. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Riddell. Any questions from councillors? I will say on behalf of council, thank you for bringing this forward. We appreciate the work that you and your department does with respect to welcoming and inclusive communities and championing diversity as well. So thank you for that. I am going to assume that there is a councillor prepared to make a motion. Councillor Waxer.
Yes, I'm happy to make that motion, but I thought I would also have take the opportunity to mention at the Alberta Municipalities Conference last week, I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with Darren Reedy, who was the responsible for the initiation of the Welcoming and Inclusive Communities program through Alberta. It was back then as AUMA, and he was again expressing great appreciation to the municipality of Jasper for having the inclusion lens included on all of our requests for decision, and so we thought that was nice to have that. But with that, I'll make the motion that council proclaim October 23rd to the 28th, 2023 as Welcoming Week in Jasper. Sorry, bad eyes. October 21st to the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Waxer. Not participating in debate, but does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I would call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried, and I do therefore hereby proclaim the week of October 21st to 28th, 2023 as Welcoming Week in the community of Jasper, and I call upon the people of Jasper to join together to build stronger communities across our region, province, country, and global community. Thank you again, Ms. Riddell. Agenda item 7, notices of motion. There are none. 6.3. Oh, did I miss one? I did, actually. Imagine. We're back up to 6.3. Council member development, Mountain and Resort Town Planners Summit. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I have the opportunity to travel to Roslyn next week for the 2023 Mountain and Resort Town Planner Summit, which I believe will be a big benefit for council from a mountain town. I would like to make a motion that council approve my attendance and associated costs at the 2023 Mountain and Resort Town Planner Summit, October 11th to 13th in Roslyn, British Columbia.
Thank you for that motion. Councillor Hall, I will speak in favor of it. I think it's a great opportunity. Mr. Given, you attended a similar conference, I think last year in the United States, or the same conference, but in a different venue, and I think you found it to be a worthwhile exercise.
Yes, Your Worship, I did. First, it was great to be in the company of other municipalities that very much the same challenges as Jasper. Although few of them are in a national park like we are, all of them face the same issues related to transportation, housing, wildlife impacts, and the visitor economy. So I found it very worthwhile. There was also a really significant contingent from our sister community in Banff that attended last year, and I believe that there are a number of councillors in Banff that attend this year in Roslyn. So I certainly found it worthwhile. I think it's something that would be worthwhile for the municipality of Jasper to attend on a regular basis. I think we can learn a lot from those other communities. I think we can also probably share a lot about what's going on in Jasper.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Any comments or discussion from councillors? I will then call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you, Councillor Hall, for being available for that. All right, I will try again to skip over agenda item 7, notices of motion, of which we have none. Agenda item 8, councillor reports. Do we have reports from councillors? Must I go first? Well, I will. I will report that with most of you, with Councillor Keller-Rampy first, I attended the Travel Industry Association of Alberta Advocacy Summit in Calgary Monday of last week. A very interesting presentation from industry and from government. The minister spoke. More importantly, though, Travel Alberta was represented, and some great learning opportunities from there. Travel Alberta presented its strategy for the provincial quest to double tourism revenues by 2035. So the target is $20 billion of revenues from tourism in the next dozen years. So that was interesting, and our role in that, I think, is still to be sorted out to some extent. But I can't see that the province can get there without leveraging Jasper, Banff, and Canmore in particular, who are already so invested in tourism. In any event, Councillor Keller-Rampy and I attended that. I attended the Alberta Municipalities Conference with the rest of you, Wednesday through Friday, although some of you were there Tuesday as well for the elected officials education program. I will leave a request potentially with administration through Mr. Given. If there is a way through Alberta municipalities to secure either the slide decks or the presentations from the various education sessions, that would be, I think, useful. We did split it up as much as we possibly could to ensure we had representation everywhere, but it would be helpful, I think, for all councillors to see some of the learnings that were available in sessions that they simply couldn't take. I attended in particular a session on staffing, although restricted, I thought, broadly to municipal staffing overall, but very focused on CAO, and some really interesting statistics were revealed. The average length of a CAO in Alberta is less than one term in council, and the smaller the municipality, the shorter the term, which is just interesting. I did leave a question, which I think is going to allow the presenter to do more academic study on the issue, but interesting. But the takeaway being that the most important thing that councils can do is have a healthy relationship with their CAO, which of course cuts both ways, but that's where that is at. I attended the session on the possible introduction of political parties into municipal politics, a hotly contested matter that led to the resolution session as well. And a really useful session on the code of conduct. That is one where I think all councillors could benefit of that, if the slide deck from that can be made available. During that, of course, during the session, I had a meeting with the mayor of Canmore and the mayors of Drumheller and Sylvan Lake, who are interested in our initiative with Banff regarding tourism-based communities. So those discussions will continue. Most, if not all of you, attended the meeting with RCMP K Division, and Councillor Melnick has shared his briefing notes from that, so I thank him for that. During the session, the legislative committee found time to meet, and you received that the minutes from that earlier today. And upon return on Saturday, September 30th, I attended and spoke at the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And that is it for my report. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for the time to prep my notes about where I've been, but so just prior to Alberta Munis Conference, the Jasper Community Housing Corporation had a board meeting on the 21st. There was an update on the MCC, the board, the JCHC board reviewed competency matrix, a draft competency matrix for the JMHC. Did I get that right? Well, yeah. Which will be a new board that we will be approaching council with, I guess, a draft competency matrix for populating that board. So we were working on that. Had a general update on the Connaught project, and we approved returning co-investment model seed money. So that will happen in the next few months. So that would have been our prior project, I guess, that we were working on last term, that is no longer moving forward. So we thought it was best to return that the seed money that business had put in. Then we moved on to, sorry, that was the JCHC meeting. And yes, I did attend the Alberta Munis conference, and the sessions I attended were net zero infrastructure projects. So there was 3 different communities presenting their trials and tribulations with net zero projects around Alberta. Second one I attended was the zero emissions public transit, which was super interesting, especially where we're at with our own public transit system. There were presenters there from Edmonton, who has a really robust electric bus fleet. I think upwards of 60 electric buses that service their city. sorry, I don't have names on me right now, but the general manager of Rome, the Bow Valley transit system, and Airdrie. So a lot of great information came from that one, and I think some really good contacts that I know that our administration have already been in contact with. So that was really nice to see that they're the ones presenting, they're the ones leading the kind of charge with electric fleets across Alberta. And then the third one I attended was extended producer responsibility and the preparation that communities, or sorry, municipalities can be doing to take advantage of EPR.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. The reports, Councillor Waxer.
I too attended the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and I wanted to offer appreciation to both the municipality of Jasper staff as well as Parks Canada staff for organizing a very meaningful and engaging event. I thought it was quite, it really resonated for me and was very worthwhile. I also attended the Alberta Municipalities Conference, and one of the sessions I attended was the healthcare in rural communities, and I was really appreciative of the level of service that we have in our community, because so many communities in Alberta right now are struggling in keeping their hospitals open and maintaining adequate level of physicians to serve their communities. Many wonderful options were discussed and were also raised in the resolution session. I thought one thing, having had experience within my own family in observing it, was the role of nurse practitioners in small communities, and how Alberta at this point doesn't have a mechanism for that profession to assist. And so I was really happy to see that there was a resolution on that note. I was also struck in the resolution session by the number of resolutions regarding mental health, homelessness, and addiction, and it was, I found it interesting, all the discussion that came as a result of that, and I don't think that a number of years ago you would have seen resolutions on that topic to the same extent. So I thought it was very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Councillor Melnick.
We've had a busy couple of weeks since we met last. A number of us, I believe 3 of us, attended NETMA at the Legion. Councillor Keller-Happy and his worship, which was a great opportunity to get back into the swing of things, and as well as I joined Councillor Wilson at the Thursday meeting that we had of the Jasper Community Housing Corporation. Attended a number of sessions also at the Alberta Community Conference, but also had the opportunity to take an educational session, which is always offered on the day before the conference. And this year I was able to attend the Municipal Corporation Planning and Finance session, and it's one of those courses that helps to educate elected officials towards the certification in our role as representing the community, and also in an effort to make us better councillors over time. I just will say that the Alberta Community Conference was very educational. It was great to see the Premier speak. It was great to see the Leader of the Opposition speak. And we also had the opportunity to ask questions of a variety of ministers. I believe 13 different ministers were at the stage on the final morning.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I too attended the municipal conference last week and was there a day early to attend with Councillor Waxer a new elected official education program for a course called Effective Meetings. You may have heard Mayor Ireland refer to no more friendly amendments earlier, but I will bring what I learned there. It was a really great course. Councillor Waxer and I learned a lot. I'll bring it to the next legislative committee meeting. I attended a few sessions that have already been spoken to, but one that I think I was the only one there was it was called something like digging the roots of the mental health crisis and people experiencing homelessness, crime, which seemed to be a theme throughout the conference. And that was quite eye-opening with a lot of solutions with trauma-based education and trauma-based healthcare and trauma-based policing. So it was a really very eye-opening session. I did also attend, Councillor Waxer and I were in the same room at the healthcare in rural settings and feel very fortunate that here in Jasper, we're quite lucky because in Boyle, Alberta, their hospital closed at 9 p.m., which surprised me. And I think the closest major city is about 50 kilometers away. So there definitely is a healthcare crisis in our province. And that's it for me.
Thank you for that. If there is nothing else, we can continue to agenda item 9, upcoming events. There is a list of events there. I note in particular the organizational meeting, which is upcoming. Councillor Melnick has provided me at my request with his druthers for appointments to various committees. Councillor Kelleher has indicated that she tried to send me an email and it didn't go, but she's going to do it again. And I encourage the rest of you to make sure that I get some notice of what appointments you might like and more particularly which ones you really don't want. So before October 24th. Not noted in the upcoming events, there is a all staff event tomorrow at 4 p.m., which has come out by email, so I just remind you of that. And there is a business walk scheduled for, I believe, October 11th. My understanding from Heather Coates is that 2 people have signed up for that. I would encourage councillors, if you're available. I have found it to be a highly positive opportunity to engage with business on the street and where they live and where they work. It appears that I am not going to be available for this one this year, but if you are available, I encourage you to make arrangements to attend. Are there any other upcoming events that should be drawn to our attention? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Worship. We are coming up to the Jasper Dark Sky Festival. And this year we have an opportunity to meet Canada's first astronaut on October 12th. There is a special event being held by the Rotary Club at the Forest Park Hotel. There is advertising. Tickets are $125. They would be need to be purchased in the next 48 hours. Just to remind people, Jasper is typically late to purchase. And along with that, there is an auction that will be available on 32 auctions. You do not need to be at the event, but I would encourage people in support of the Rotary Club doing their good work here in the community to take a look at the auction and perhaps consider bidding on items.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. If that is it for upcoming events, we move to agenda item 10. Might I have a motion to adjourn at 3:20 p.m.? Councillor Wilson? All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you to the audience that we may have had on our Zoom platform. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to observe this public session of your locally elected council, and that is it for today. Thank you.